It's one of the most divisive and some say devastating impacts of the COVID lockdowns. The government shutting people down, allowing people to gather in places like Walmart and Costco, but not at their local houses of worship during the pandemic. Republicans in Wisconsin now backing an amendment to government agencies saying they cannot close places of worship during local, state, or federal emergencies. This centers around Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers' stay-at-home order in early 2020, which limited church attendance to 10 people or fewer. Most congregations more than that. Let's talk to Niall Stanage, White House columnist for The Hill. Niall, I think what was so frustrating for so many is that the governments, not just in Wisconsin, but all over the country, they moved in to prevent a surge of cases, to prevent super spreader events. But still, you could go to other highly populated areas deemed essential. So would this amendment make houses of worship essential?
Yes, that's the simple answer. It would prohibit not just the governor, but any arm of government from prohibiting or restricting the numbers of people who would gather in houses of worship. Now, the point that you make, I think, Adrienne, is a very important one, in that commercial services at times were deemed essential, and church services, which obviously many people of faith would regard as just as spiritually essential to their lives, were either banned or severely restricted. So that is at least part of the argument for this amendment, even as critics have a different view, which is that it deprives public health officials of the tools they might need in any future emergency.
Well, now in hindsight, we know a whole lot more. We report a whole lot more about what happened during those lockdowns. There's an argument that if you do belong to a certain faith, it's in part for your mental health, which was debilitated for many people, for almost everybody, and that worship or prayer services will keep you in a much better state of mind during an emergency. The U.S. Surgeon General speaking out about the threats of loneliness and isolation in a recent health advisory. So would this amendment have a better chance at passing if they use data like this? Because, of course, opponents are going to use science.
I think it would have a better chance of passing because the point that you make about loneliness, about isolation, about disconnection, all those topics are things that we're only now learning more and more about. I mean, of course, anecdotally, we know the damage that can be wrought by those things. But now we are developing more scientific data about just the ramifications of those things, how they affect physical health as well as mental health. Now, we do have to present the other side of the story, Adrienne, which is, as you know, there were COVID outbreaks specifically linked to church services during the worst days of the pandemic. There's a case in Charlotte where 200 cases and 12 deaths were linked to a particular church. So like all interesting debates, it's a balancing of rights, and that's where the debate lies.
Well, I'm sure that at some point there are people who have data, and I haven't done it myself, where they could show or point to super spreader or COVID outbreaks based on people going to certain beaches. I remember the case of AOC when she left New York and went to Miami and was highly criticized for not wearing a mask, and then she contracted COVID during some celebrations on the beach. We didn't shut down that beach following that particular situation, though in some places there were beach shutdowns. Let me just talk to you about the timing of this, because clearly we're in 2023. A number of laws passed in other states earlier in the pandemic, but people could say, this was so far behind us. For proponents of these particular measures, it's about the freedom of religion. That has been and continues to be a major issue on the campaign trail. Do you think the amendment has a good chance at passing?
It has some chance of passing in that Republicans hold healthy majorities in both the state Senate and the state Assembly in Wisconsin, and it's Republicans who are pushing this measure. It's notable that there are some church groups in favour and others that seem more reluctant about this because of the nuances of the issue. But the overarching point, freedom of religion, is clearly a really important political issue right now. We see that sort of percolate through a lot of different specific topics or specific manifestations of that freedom of religion debate. So it's clearly going to be a salient point, and that's something that I think proponents will be putting forth.
Absolutely. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.